Oh, yeah. And we're starting.
Hi,
Welcome.
everybody.
Welcome, everyone. Please, if you can, put your name and your LinkedIn profile in the chat. We're so happy you're here to join us. If you're feeling brave, you can also say which generation you identify by, but you don't have to do that. We're not age shaming here, and we're also not checking birth certificates or anything like that. So you can go with what you feel inside. And then any questions that you're interested in having the panelists answer, either that you have now or things that come up during the discussion, please feel free to just pop those in the chat as well. Yay, yay, yay. Oh, and I guess I should probably do mine.
I know, I was just thinking the same.
Follow my own instructions.
We are important too.
Yeah. You're also welcome to unmute yourself and turn your camera on. We have about 22 minutes before the actual speech and then panel is going to start. So it doesn't just have to be us talking at you guys. This can kind of be like a fun little discussion going back and forth. And also, if you don't want to turn your camera on, that's fine too. Just letting you know. I almost didn't turn mine on when I saw how pretty Maggie's hair is. I was like, what's the point?
Stop it.
No, I mean it.
So
I mean
nice of
it.
you. Thank you. Always give the best compliments.
Oh my gosh, I try. That's actually a wonderful compliment. So thank you. I know I'm excited to learn more about mentorship. So that's something I've been thinking about. I know mentorship is a really big topic of discussion, especially at women in technology events. But I was just talking about it with my mom a couple days ago about how generations are so different based on if they're comfortable talking on the phone, if they're comfortable meeting in person, if they'd rather just text. And so I'm super interested to kind of hear what the panelists think about how mentorship has changed across generations or how they think maybe it should change to be more effective across generations. I don't know. That's just something that I'm going to make sure to pop in the chat. But again, anyone else who's coming in now, put your name, your LinkedIn profile in the chat. Feel free to connect with everybody on LinkedIn. That's what this is for. And then, yeah, any questions or topics you're interested in the panelist kind of touching on, please put them in the chat as well, and we'll make sure to try and get to as many as we can during the Q&A at the end. So exciting.
I'm
Hi,
excited as
Denise.
well.
I feel like one of those influencers on like a live. Hi, MJ. Hi, Ashley. Thanks for joining. Thanks for the heart. That might be a generational thing to some folks. See, it's already happening. We're
See,
having
Meg,
generational talk.
are you under Gen Z as well?
I
You
believe
and
I
I.
am millennial. Yeah, I had to Google it as well, Rebecca. I never know what the exact cutoffs are. So I think 92. So I'm pretty sure that's millennial. I think the cutoff is 94. Oh,
Wait a second. I might be wrong with mine.
wait, now I have to Google it.
I'm a
Oh,
millennial. I'm not a Gen Z. Google did me wrong.
welcome.
The cutoff is
Welcome.
1995, and that is me.
Wow. Yep. See, so we're finding it out. Thank you, Kelsey. I'm proud to be a millennial.
Me too. I
Um,
was
yeah,
I put that in the chat and I'm like, I don't remember being a Gen Z.
yeah.
I'm definitely a millennial. So I'm going to correct that in the chat.
Good, because
Millennial.
we actually were gonna fact check that, Maggie.
I know.
We were gonna come at you.
Well, I don't want people to think I'm a Gen Zer if I'm a millennial because millennials are so cool.
Not the Gen Zers aren't. This is a safe space for
I'm
all the
just kidding.
generations, Maggie.
I know. I'm just kidding.
Oh,
But
wait.
yeah,
Oh, I'm not hold on. What did I even say? I'm a Gen
say whatever
X.
you like. Gen X.
Gen X.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Very
that
cool.
is, wait, are you the one that just put it in the chat? That is,
Yeah. So 65 to 79.
see, and I feel like no one talks about that one. Generation X. I feel like, do you guys get lost in the shuffle?
We're
It's
like
called
the
it's called the
we
lost
grew
generation.
yeah,
Yes. Are
we
you?
grew up walking to the TV, and then by the time we got to high school, email came out. And then
Wow.
phones came out when we were in college. Well, beepers came out in high school.
Wow.
It says that Generation X is the first generation to be raised by working mothers.
Yeah.
that is so
Amazing.
cool.
Are we the lost generation, really?
I know that part's sad, but
It
I
literally
like
says
the other
forgotten
one.
generation right there.
Yep.
It says, although
my
Generation
God.
X is often seen as the forgotten generation, people born from these years are responsible for pioneering technologies and valuable principles that remain relevant today.
Good job, you
Absolutely.
guys. Oh, it says
See?
that you're sometimes also called the MTV generation because MTV
Yeah.
debuted.
I'm jealous of
Wow.
Yep.
that.
I remember that.
And now
When
you go on
MTV
I
was
think
music
MTV.
Devo
videos.
Whip It Good was the first video played or something.
Sounds about right. Either that one or is it Video Killed the Radio Star? I don't know why I feel
Or
like
maybe
that could
that's
be
it.
it.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah. R.I.P. TRL. Oh my God.
Oh.
Yeah, no, it's so funny that you said that, Rebecca, about how you went from being the remote control for your parents essentially, and then
Yes.
seeing everything. That has to be one of the largest
Oh yeah.
jumps, I would
Yes.
imagine.
Yeah.
Well, and
Um,
like when my dad wanted to record something that I was in when I was young, he had to carry this like this this
Camcorder.
camera that was huge, and then he had to have like basically a VHS strapped to his belt. Like a VHS that was, and I mean the total weight had to
camcorder.
be like
But that's
40
so
pounds
cool.
just to record me in a play.
Like, what a proud dad. That's so cool. And now it's just your phones for
How's just your
everything.
phone that nobody looks at
Yeah.
it again?
yeah. No, and now it's too much. I remember looking back at my baby books, and there's probably like 30 pictures of me, my entire, from
I have 30
0
pictures
to
from
4.
today.
I have 5,000 pictures of my child from the
Yes.
last
I
3
know.
months.
It is too much. I bought frames
Too
for the
much.
wall and I'm like, which one do I choose? Because
It's
there's
there's a
10,000
lot.
pictures from the time he's been born to now. And how does one choose?
Wow, that's so funny. Oh
I
God,
know.
this is why these are so fun because you learn
I
about what other
know.
people remember. I just remember still having to ask, "Can I please go on the internet?" Because it meant
Because
dial
it
up and
meant the phone
the
didn't
phone was
work.
going to be down. So
Yeah.
kids
Can you
today have
believe
no
that I'm going
idea
to
what
tell my
that
kid one day
means.
that you had to use CDs for music in a CD player?
Yeah.
Like, those were
Yeah,
the days.
yeah. I don't
Tapes.
know
I
if
had
this.
so many
Flip
mixtapes.
phones.
Cassette tapes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cassette
Oh
tapes.
yeah.
Well, I had a cassette player in my car because my car was so old when I was in high school, and it was a tape deck. So it was a tape that went in with a cord,
Oh
and
yeah,
it would
yeah.
hook up to like your MP3 player or your iPod or your
yeah,
phone.
Uh-huh.
yeah.
What about A tracks? Does anybody remember A tracks?
I
Oh my God,
remember them, but
Gabby.
yeah.
I think we had a
Pagers.
car
So
that had
funny
an
though.
8-track slot, and I feel like I was like, what was that?
I remember Donna Summers on an 8-track tape, and you'd have to skip like 4 songs to get to the next track. So that's how old I am.
Oh
So
yeah.
Oh my gosh. No, this is great. I feel like we have a great new icebreaker. So everyone who's just now coming in, put your name, put your LinkedIn profile in the chat, and then a piece of technology from your youth that you miss.
What
Because
do I miss?
ah,
My iPod. I miss my
Mm.
iPod.
yeah, that's a good one.
Hi,
I'm trying to
Jamie Rice
think.
here, ladies. I
Yeah.
miss pagers.
Yep. Yep. So funny. It's so funny because
Pagers.
so many of them too, like old sitcoms will mention certain technologies, and I always assumed as I got older, wow, I can't wait to get a beeper, or wow, even Gilmore Girls, they have, oh,
Yes.
someone's
Yes.
paging me. Totally
Yes.
skipped that. Never got a pager. I
My
always
dad
wanted a
had one for
colorful.
work.
Yeah, yeah, and you couldn't. It was like, do not message that. It's a work.
Don't touch
A
it.
work. Yep. I remember my first phone, and it was just a phone, flip phone, T9 Word. I actually kind of miss doing T9
Did it
Word.
have
I feel like I
Snake on
could
it?
still do it. It didn't have Snake on it, but I remember accidentally hitting like the internet button one time and frantically cancel. I didn't
Yes,
know what
because you
that
thought you
did.
were going
I
to get
didn't know if
charged
it
a
was
bunch
going
of
to
money.
charge a bunch of money. Yep. So,
Oh.
oh, Tamagotchi, so stressful.
We went to Arkansas, which is like a random place that nobody goes to because my brother made the Little League World Series and my dad had gotten a cell phone 6 months prior and nobody understood how cell phones worked. And when we got home, he had like a $600 phone bill from using his phone in Arkansas because back then you bought plans for like where you lived.
Right.
And when you went somewhere
Right.
else, it
it's
was,
roaming charges. He
yes,
was
my
and it
saying
was
roaming
US
gosh.
charges.
Cellular. US Cellular,
That's
and like, do you
so
remember going in there and
funny.
them having a map of like what plans you had?
Oh.
Yep. Oh my
Like-
God, Game Boy Color. I had a purple one too, Caitlin, and I recently found not the Game Boy Color, but the Game Boy Advance SP, which was from a couple years later, and the nostalgia. Ah,
Hi,
oh my God, a couple
Caitlin.
people are saying
Hey, I
that.
recently dug up my SP too. So
Yeah,
I
right?
found it. It's just chilling in a tote, and guess what? Still works. Good
It
as new.
still works. The only
Amazing.
problem is I play some of the games and it's been so long and I was so far in them. I have no idea what the point is. I'm like walking around with these characters. I'm like, I don't know what the mission is. Nothing's popping up to help me. It's just like, it's just too sad. But
Too funny. Yep, Nintendogs and stuff.
Yes, Nintendo
Oh
Dogs
my
on the
God.
Nintendo DS. The little pink one that flipped up with your little pen
oh
on
my
it.
God.
I was so cool for getting that for Christmas.
Oh my gosh. I still think you're cool, Maggie.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Atari. Oh my gosh. Yep. Yep. Back when we
Wow.
wanted like a PlayStation or something, my parents got us Atari.
PlayStation 1.
And it was
Yeah.
so funny because I mean it was fun. There were some like the
Yeah.
Caterpillar game and a couple other ones, but
I remember I beat Kaboom, which was like somebody was dropping like bombs
Yes!
and you had like 3 buckets of water and you used this one, that joystick for it. But yeah,
Oh,
I was never
wow.
allowed to have Nintendo, so I had to deal with Atari and play Nintendo at a friend's house.
yeah. Yeah.
And Sega.
Yes. Hit clips. I always
Yes.
wanted hit clips. And they make no sense looking
What
back.
is the
It
point of
literally-
them? I
What
don't
is a hit
understand when you
clip?
could just buy a
Oh
whole
my gosh,
song.
Rebecca. It was this tiny, it was like a keychain that was basically a little tape player, and you'd get little clips and you
30
put in Britney
seconds, not
Spears,
even.
like 12 seconds of a song, but they were
And
so
it would play it out
cool.
loud, not even through headphones or anything.
Wasn't good quality,
No.
but and you would just collect all these little hit clips. Oh, I
Yes.
wanted one so
It
bad.
sounded so expensive.
Oh,
It did,
probably
it
which
was.
is why
Really
I also didn't
unrealistic,
have
but
one. Yeah.
somebody made millions off those, I bet.
See, that's I think the largest thing about tech, at least back in the day. It was
Sometimes.
very specific, very expensive. Now you can get a giant flat screen for $200. Back then, you get the tiniest little flat
We
screen,
got
and
a
it was
flat screen and it
700.
was, my dad was so excited and it was like $800 and I think it was like 30 inches, not even like 20
Gosh,
something inches.
so
But
funny.
you know what?
Baby
My
G.
mom still has that TV in her basement. And it's
Well,
a
see,
flat
they
screen
were
with a big
built to
old back to it.
last. They were built to last back then.
Yeah.
Things these days, not so much.
They were, yeah.
But yeah, anyone new coming in, put your name in the chat. Feel free to put your LinkedIn profile in the chat. And then right now, we're just talking about technology, old tech that we miss, new tech that we love. But if you have any questions already that you'd love to pop in the chat for later, we'll be monitoring those for the Q&A. And during the discussion, if anyone says anything and it sparks like, whoa, I have a question, or that makes me think of something, throw that in the chat as well. And we're going to try to get to as many as we can. And who knows, if you have a really good question or a really good topic, it might be the one that we pick for our Springwood event. You just never know.
Does anybody remember the computer game Oregon Trail?
Oh my gosh, dysentery.
Yes.
That's how I
Yes.
learned what dysentery was. And as far as I know, it's something that kills you. I still am not 100% sure what it is. Oh my gosh, we had way back in the day, I remember sitting in our unfinished attic. All of my mom, my dad, my 2 sisters, we were all huddled around. I think it was a monster TV. It was like an old, and it was the oldest version of Oregon Trail I've ever seen. It was essentially stick figures, and we all watched my mom play it. It wasn't like multiple players, and she would I just remember her hunting. It was little balls that she would shoot out with the space bar, and we were all like, Mom. So funny. Oh my gosh. Harder than Tamagotchis. I never made it. No, I don't think you could make it, Ashley. I think it's a conspiracy. You were either gonna drown while fording a river, you were gonna break a leg, or you were gonna get dysentery. So I'm not
Totally.
even sure. I'm not even sure people made it to Oregon in real life, quite frankly. If it was as hard as the game. uh, Man, that's something I think about too is just how technology in the broader sense is so different. I like to sometimes think if I brought somebody from the 1700s, what would be the most thing I could show them?
I know.
Honestly,
It'd
just-
honestly be too much.
I don't even know where to start, but the fact that back in the day, a trip to Oregon took 3 months and you lost half the party on the way there. And now it's like you could do that a couple hours on a plane. Everyone's still there. No one's aged. Everyone has all their limbs. It's just crazy. But Mavis Beacon, is that a technology?
I just heard that 1700s comment. Sorry, I had to go talk to kids, but I just helped a friend write a resignation letter using ChatGPT, and her mind was blown. So I can't imagine what would happen if you did that
Yeah.
for somebody in the 1700s. Like,
Yeah.
Mavis
hey,
Beacon is a typing class.
Mavis Beacon is a typing class?
Yes.
It
It teaches typing.
I remember Spooky the Ghost. Did anyone have that one? It was like, hey, I'm Spooky. Put your left hand on the ASDNF. Put your right hand.
No.
Didn't stick. I'm like a little monkey when I type, but it was also funny. A lot of the things they told us about technology back in the day, I remember so many of my teachers saying, "You're not going to have a calculator in your pocket."
I
Okay,
know, or
so
you're
you
not
need
going to be able to look at the periodic table.
Guess what? I have everything I need and more. And that's probably why I still don't know how to do algebra. So when
No, I don't either.
when my child eventually comes to me with math homework, I will not be able to help. But I also heard they changed math, so I may not be able to help anyway. But I don't want a broken record for the people that are already here, but for new people, drop your name in the chat, drop your LinkedIn in the chat. We're here to connect, we're here to network. Feel free to unmute yourself and turn your face cameras on if you'd like. They will be going off once the event starts, just so we can all focus. But yeah, any questions you have during or now, pop them in as well. And yeah, we're just right now talking about tech. I'm trying to think of other technology. My favorite phone I ever had was the NV3.
Remember the
Ah,
chocolate?
I always wanted the chocolate or the razor. I never had either of those. Or the
The
jukebox.
razor.
Do you remember the jukebox? Oh, Sidekick. Oh, right,
Sidekick where it would like flip up.
right. Because I don't know if it's still the same, but it was a lot more different back then, right? Where like certain phones were tied to certain carriers. Now it's like,
Okay, so US Cellular had one, but it wasn't the
yeah,
chocolate. It was just very similar to the chocolate, and that's what I had. But
yes.
Verizon had the chocolate.
And T-Mobile had the
T-Mobile had the
Sidekick.
Sidekick.
Yes. So funny. Yeah, I always wanted the razor, the pink razor. So many people had it. But then I got that NV3. It was green. It flipped. Oh my God. Favorite phone I've ever had. LG chocolate. Yep.
Yes, the
LG,
best.
Verizon.
Oh,
Yep.
and my BlackBerry. Why was I having a
I never
BlackBerry as a 17-year-old? I don't
I
know.
never had one, but my college roommate had a BlackBerry and she would do BBM, BlackBerry Messenger, and
Okay,
she
but
thought it was
like
so
when I got the
cool.
BlackBerry, nobody else had it, so it was pointless.
No one to message. So sad.
Yeah.
Ah. Yeah, that's the tough thing, Allison, about like wishing certain things were still around. I remember being so sad when Facebook Messenger killed AIM. I was like, I'm not going to use Facebook Messenger. I'm going to stay on AIM. But when no one else stays on AIM and everyone else it died. Like you can't. A one girl movement won't do it.
I
Um,
know.
it's sad. Oh wow, I didn't know iPhones were originally
Me
only available
either.
on AT&T.
They looked like iPods. Like they looked like the touchscreen
They were
iPods.
bricks. They were
Yeah.
so much middle school drama, Ashley.
This is
Oh my God.
Alice. The iPhone 4 was the first one that came to
Yes.
Like,
Verizon. Yeah.
Yes,
that's
I had it at US
crazy.
Cellular, the
Ah,
iPhone 4.
Cool.
That was
Yeah,
my first
iPhone 4.
iPhone.
that's so crazy. What iPhone are we up to?
16.
The 16 is,
Sheesh.
I think, just
And
came out.
that was the other thing too. When you first had an iPhone, you could only be in a call. You couldn't be on the web searching. You couldn't be texting at the same time. Like that didn't happen until, I don't know, like iPhone 7 or 8. It was a long time
That's
before you could do that.
I don't even
crazy.
remember that. That's so funny.
No, but
And I
it makes
remember like
sense.
Those
everyone on
little things you just
AT&T
don't
could do it.
remember.
They
Mm.
wanted you to have your iPhone, your iPod, and now they're all crammed into one. But
Yeah.
that's so funny. No, in college, I had this little like personal epiphany. I was like, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to flip phones. I'm too connected. And it really doesn't work nowadays. I mean, In college, I only had a debit card. I couldn't check my banking on my phone when I downgraded. I couldn't make sure money got moved. Nobody invites you to stuff if you're not on like at least one social platform. I felt very lonely. So I quickly came back. It only kind of works if you can get the whole world to unplug, I feel. Digital cameras. Oh my gosh, remember
I had a
going to an
hot pink
event?
one. Loved
I had a
those.
silver one. Oh
And they
man.
weren't expensive back then.
And
And now they're like $50.
you'd upload an album to Facebook and it would have some
It'd be
funny
like
title that was an
63
inside
photos
joke.
last night.
Yeah. Or like, I told you not to drop that sock and nobody else knows what that means, but
Yes.
your friends knew what that meant.
What about MySpace?
I was not allowed to have a MySpace.
I wasn't either, but
Really? I loved my MySpace.
I did too, because you could use like music and you had playlists. And I think I should have been a coder in another life, because I would do all of these crazy coding things to make my profile look so cool. And I would spend hours at night perfecting it, making it centered and bolded and colored and on like it. I should have been a coder.
And then embedding all those sparkly little images and all that
Yes.
stuff and making the whole thing sparkle.
And
Yep.
going on different pages that had different kinds of layouts that you would copy and paste into the big thing of coding, the layout.
I guess MySpace still exists. I just got a person left our company and gave me his MySpace. I'm like, that's still a thing.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
I think it's
No.
music
Fine.
based now. I think it's a big music site.
Music.
Yeah,
Yes.
but he
Music
uses
site.
it for social media too, because that's where his
Really?
email
Really?
address is. Yeah, so it was kind of interesting. I'm like, oh well, then
Crazy.
my AOL account's still active. Then I guess.
That is
My
hysterical,
Yeah.
but also
No.
very cool.
Yeah, I've
I
tried to
just
reactivate
went
my-
to it. It's real.
It is
So-
real, but you know what they
It's all
did,
music.
which is so sad? If you never deleted your account, all of your photos are now gone. Like you
Yeah,
don't have like a
everything.
profile really anymore.
Yep.
So they like wiped the
Wow.
old profiles.
Yep. I saw that.
And that's funny too. I'm glad you brought that up. It's hard not to, but doesn't a small part of you still judge people if their email address is like at Hotmail
Yeah.
or
Totally.
Or at
Mine-
AOL.
what about Roadrunner or like what's my mom's? Any.rr.com. Any people ever have that?
my grandparents have at
Yes.
tampabay.rr.com. Yes.
My husband is still Hotmail. So
So funny.
I mean, and like no judgment to your husband. Maybe it's just because we're in like the recruiting space, but it's just so funny. It just like immediately brings me back. Hotmail, that was my first email address. Like it's just
so what is cool? Is Gmail okay still, or
yes, Gmail, totally cool. Yeah,
Okay.
Comcast, even though I don't know, they like won't load on my phone anymore. I think they might be sunsetting as well, but
all right?
But yeah. No, you'll still get a job with us. Don't you worry. We don't discriminate against Hotmail users. We just have a little giggle about it on our side. That's all.
Yes, the top friends was so funny. Because like you could basically be like, oh, I'm not friends with you anymore by solely switching your top friends on MySpace.
So petty.
Does anybody remember this might make me sound not old, but when Snapchat first came out, you could see who your top 3 Snapchatters were. So that was a big drama too, because like if you're Snapchatting all of your friends, like who are you Snapchatting the most, and it would show and you couldn't hide it.
Crazy. Yep.
Yeah.
Now it's follows or streaks. You have a 5-day streak.
Yes.
You have a 10-day streak.
I haven't used it in so long.
Oh my goodness. So funny. No, I saw this meme online. Memes have really grown over the last 20 years. But it was someone just basically doing a MySpace top friends list in real life. And they just messaged their friends, hey Tom, you didn't RSVP to my birthday party, just letting you know you got bumped from 3 to 4. So, pick it up. And I thought it
You
was
just
so funny.
reminded me, that's a great Halloween costume. I saw somebody they made a
Top
MySpace
friends.
page and they put the 10 friends and like
That's
it was kind of a
awesome.
joke. And then you go to the
That's
party
hilarious.
and people are like, but then he put like everybody's head on a Velcro and then he had a bunch of them in like a bag and so he could switch them over the course of the night.
They're so
That is
creative.
brilliant.
I wouldn't
He
even
was
know how
very
to make
creative.
something like that.
Yeah. And
Oh
I
my
always thought like,
gosh.
oh, that's a great costume. That's a lot of work, but it's a great costume.
lot of work. You'd have to wear it more than 1 year for me to want to do that. That would just I would be MySpace girl for 5 Halloweens running just because of the amount of blood, sweat, and tears that went into that. But uh, I always wanted to be a Sim for Halloween. I guess that was the tech. Sims 1. Obsessed with Sims 1. It was magical. You can find the soundtrack to it still, like on Spotify now, and sometimes I just listen to it in the background as if I'm building a house. But the people that would put a giant green diamond above above their head and just kind of walk around, I always thought that was so funny. Alrighty, awesome guys. So anyone who's new, this is the last time I'm going to say it, but drop your name in the chat, drop your LinkedIn profile in the chat, and then please, any questions you have along the way. I do think we are starting the preparations to kind of get this show on the road. So yeah, excited to hear from the experts, if you will.
Enjoy, everybody.
Yeah, enjoy. And I'm back. I've unmuted myself because I have the power. We're just having a slight delay because of that horrible big accident on 95. I don't know if you guys read about that, but thoughts and prayers. But our audio visual guy was just caught up in that. So we're just starting just a couple minutes late. I could unmute you all, but I'm kind of loving this little power trip I'm having. So we'll just keep the chat going for now. And again, any questions, any topics you'd like to see chatted about in the future. Thank you, Caitlin. And names, LinkedIn profiles, everything in the chat. But oh my gosh, Kelsey, that is a toxic trait. Update all. There's getting a converter to get the feed to the computer that's there. So we should be up and going in a couple minutes. But Amy, I always thought they were so cool too. I guess in hindsight, they're not quite as practical as a cell phone, but they looked cooler.
Yeah, go for it. And I can shut that off too, so that's just this little.
Oh gosh, who forgot to send Jen M the email, the chain email? She's gone. I'm just kidding, everybody. This is just part of the process. It's part of the technical process. My
I
friends
keep
got
having
so
to mute
annoyed.
myself because my child is having dinner, and if you have any idea how it is to feed a toddler, you know how loud it can be.
When's technology going to be invented to help that? Now
I
that
know.
would be.
Well, I thought that it did. I thought that it kind of muted out the background noise, but I was on a call the other day and someone was like, "Is your kid okay?" And I'm like, "Oh, you can hear that down there?"
He's fine. That's just how he speaks.
He has a
Ah,
lot to say.
that's good. I can't wait until you know what it all means.
Yeah, it's 90% gibberish. So you get like words here and there. His favorite word though is no. So that one's said a lot.
Nice to officially meet you, Kelsey. Hi, Melody. Names, LinkedIn profiles, questions, topics, areas of concern, all that and above can go in the chat, as well as any old technologies you love and miss, any new technologies you're looking forward to. Do we have any like smart fit people here? Apple Watches or rings? I feel like in some cases it's good. And in other cases, it's like, oh, if I went for a walk and my ring didn't pick it up, does it count?
You're talking about Apple Watches too? Yeah.
Okay, I think we're back.
We're getting ready. Apple Watch girly, you gotta close those rings, Amy.
Are you seeing level anywhere? Maggie, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me online? What do you can hear?
They can hear background noise.
Was this working?
This speaker is my speaker on here, so maybe the speaker needs to be that other one. And they don't.
This is if the sound is coming back to us, and the microphone.
So maybe you just mute. Yeah, usually what I did was I would, yeah. So they're hearing the background still. Which makes sense because
I'm not sure how to get the sound into your system.
want me to turn this back on and
Yeah.
we'll just go with that.
Yeah.
Okay, for the online portion, and that should be able to.
just gonna put this up here. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, I'll move it there after. All right, great. Well, we can get started. Thank you everyone for your patience, and good evening and welcome to our 13th annual Women in Technology event. I see a lot of former WIT attendees here, but for those who don't know me, my name is Kelsey Nicholas, and I'm the Director of Recruiting at Market Street Talent, an IT staffing and consulting firm based right here in Portsmouth. So whether you're joining us in person or virtually, we're grateful for your presence and support. Tonight, we honor the legacy, current strides, and bright future of women in tech as we celebrate the achievements of our panelists and of women in tech around the world. We also acknowledge the journey is far from over and that we have significant work remains to bridge the gender gap in IT. Sure. Thank you. So this mic's throwing me off a little bit. It's very loud. Yeah. Our WIT event, which is hosted twice annually, serves as both a celebration and a call to action to inspire meaningful change, empower future leaders, and collectively work towards an industry where gender equality is the norm and not the exception. We wouldn't be here tonight without the dedication of so many great women, and I first would like to send a big thank you to our co-sponsor, the Diversity Workforce Coalition, as well as the committee who brought this event to life, Jennifer Gray, Jennifer McMahon, Marie Rapucci, and Val Dingle. A thank you is also in order to the 100 Club for hosting us, as well as MFI Pro for the audio support. Now I'd like to briefly invite Val to the stage to share a little bit more about DWC.
Thank you, Kelsey. Welcome, everyone. I'm Val Dingle. I currently serve as the Chief Diversity Officer for Prime Buchholz, an independent investment advisory firm based right here in Portsmouth, like Market Street Talent. But of course, that's my day job. This evening, it's my distinct honor and pleasure to represent the Diversity Workforce Coalition, DWC, here. We're thrilled to be a part of this inspiring and uplifting event. You know, we've seen a lot of great strides for women in technology, but as Kelsey said, we still have a lot of work ahead of us. As far as the DWC goes, we are a nonprofit member organization that launched in 2012, thanks to a group of dedicated and committed board members who saw the strong need to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, in the workplace. You know, at our core is the belief that a diverse workforce is not only good for business, but it's essential in today's fast-paced economy and rapidly shifting employment market. As companies grow and change, you know, our approaches to DEI have to as well. So the DWC offers programming focused on education, networking, professional development, and whether you're interested in implementing best practices or simply getting together with folks that share your passions, the DWC offers a wonderful platform to do that. Our events are intended to forge connections, which is so important to our work, and spark collaboration. And speaking of events, for those of you in the room, there's postcards all over the place. I would like for you to mark your calendars for March 6th of next year. We have our annual DEI conference. Our theme is Together We Rise, transforming resistance. I'm resistant saying the word resistance. Transforming resistance into DEI progress. It's shaping up to be a wonderful program. It will feature a keynote address, various breakout sessions, as well as multiple networking opportunities. We also will have our annual Workplace DEI Awards ceremony and panel discussion. It's a great program. The application process actually opens in December and runs until the beginning of February. So if your organization has a great DEI story to tell. Whether you're a member of DWC or not, we encourage you to apply. We have a very dedicated selection committee that works on that process. Having said that, if by any chance your organizations are not members of DWC, we encourage you to consider becoming a member. I think working together and like really harnessing diversity as a strength, we really do have the opportunity to drive change throughout our organizations and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Val, for all the great work you do. Before we jump into things, just a few housekeeping items for our virtual attendees. We have turned off your camera and mic for bandwidth and audio quality purposes. The chat feature is located at the top of your screen. Please feel free to use it freely throughout the event for comments, questions, and to connect with fellow participants. When it comes time to the Q&A portion, we will be reading your questions out loud for the panelists to address, so please feel free to ask away. And then lastly, for those that have joined us in person, please feel free to drop your business card in the container by the front door if you'd like to stay informed about future WIT events. So finally, for the theme of tonight's event, celebrating generations of women in tech, we're thrilled to be joined here by our amazing moderator, Nadia, as well as our panel of 4 remarkable women. We have Jackie, Kathy, Sophia, and Kendall, each representing a different generation in tech, from baby boomers to Gen Z. As they share their stories, we'll engage in a heartfelt conversation about the motivations and experiences that led them to embrace a career in technology. We'll discuss how tech careers have evolved for women, examining shifts in opportunities, education, and workplace challenges over the decades. Our panelists will also reflect on the importance of mentorship across generations, as well as offer advice for finding or becoming a mentor for others. We'll also touch on how women navigate the balance between tradition and innovation, juggling work-life commitments and adapting to new technology, while also leveraging intergenerational collaboration to drive creativity among teams. Lastly, I know it's a lot, but we're going to cover it all. We'll look to the future of women in tech, highlighting the skills, roles, and trends that will shape the next era. Tonight's conversation will impact everyone, whether you're a business owner, a family, friend, or a coworker. Our hope is that the discussion will not only honor the legacy of women in tech, but inspire ongoing progress and pave the way for a future where equity is a standard practice and every generation has the opportunity to thrive, innovate, and lead comfortably. So without further delay, I would like to invite our moderator and our panelists to each do a short introduction about themselves to kick off the conversation. And Nadia, I'll have you begin.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. Thank you. You put in so much work, and the whole team behind the Market Street talent team, just great work. And this is a really, really important conversation. So I'm really excited and honored to be the moderator today. Yeah, so my name is Nadia. I have a lot of years in marketing experiences, a lot of corporate experiences. I recently broke up with corporate. We still talk, but and now I'm taking essentially everything that I learned and help people found their own businesses. And that's so important and I work with so many women, and it's just very, very inspiring to see how we are all equally ambitious and motivated, whatever the gender, whatever you identify as. And so without further ado, again, it's not about me. It's going to be about you, ladies. I'm only asking the questions here, and that is a good role to have. How about Kat? Do you want to start a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. I'm excited to have a wonderful panel and then also the back and forth and the conversation through our Q&A. My name's Jackie Christensen, and I've been working in educational technology for the past 18 years, 13 of those years in product management, and 7 of those years as a leader in product management, mentoring teams of product managers, working in an agile Scrum environment. And most recently, I've been at the Achievement Network. We're a nonprofit working to bring educational equality to schools. So I feel like this is a good place to be. I heard that word equality a lot tonight. I am a mom of a 16-year-old. So you guys, I'm Gen X, I think. I'm a young Gen X. I'm on the cusp of Gen X. I'm 46. It's really hot in here.
We won't force anyone to identify, but millennial.
And I think what's cool about, this generation that I've experienced is just all the technology shifts. And I know we'll get into it, but from, I remember days when we didn't have a personal computer at home to all of a sudden we did. And then, there's internet, but it was a dial-up internet and cloud computing. And, so it's been amazing to, ride all of those different waves and find myself in technology. So I'll pass it on to Kathy.
Hi, and yes, thank you. Thank you very much for the honor of being up here today and being in front of all of you. So I'm Kathy Marble, and I'm a director of software engineering currently at Extreme Networks. This year, I celebrated my 25th work anniversary. That deserves that. Seemed very hard to believe, though, because it was over the course of 3 companies. And I'll share this with you because there's a story with this. 25 years ago, I started with Nortel Networks. They were booming. 12 years later, right when I started, they had 110,000 employees. 12 years later, bankrupt. I was among the last 20,000. My portion of the business got sold off to Avaya. Fortunately, I got an offer and I got to continue over to Avaya, so my bridge service. I was at Avaya for 6 years. Guess what? No, Chapter 11. They actually survived. They're still around. But part of the way they did that is they sold off my part of the business.
It's not you, it's me.
Yeah. And now I'm with Extreme Networks, and I've been there for 7 years. So that's how I've gotten to the 25. Lots of different roles, so it doesn't feel like it's been that long. However, embracing change has been really important. I've also, during this time, been able to manage global teams. We talk about diversity and inclusion, teams in the US, Canada, Europe, India, right? All sorts of diversity and challenges there. I've worked on a lot of innovative technology, which makes things very fun. I've also been a mentor to a number of people, and I found that to be one of the most rewarding things to see others succeed in their career. I'm also a mother of 3 girls, now women, having their own careers and doing very well. During that time, just on a more personal note, I've also got divorced, so that had its challenges.
Show your hands, show your hands.
And now engaged. But life has just been all sorts of changes and challenges, opportunities, ups and downs, right? We all find them. So that's who I am.
Hello. There we go. Hi, everyone. I'm Sophia Pike. I currently work as an electrical engineer at Cisco Hennessy Group in their Boston office. I'm here today because my dad, the money man from Market Street Talent. But Cisco Hennessy Group is an MEP firm, so we do mechanical, electrical, and plumbing design for commercial buildings. I specifically help design the electrical systems for data centers and a lot of other commercial buildings. I started off my career 5-ish years ago, I think. So I started off as an intern for a company called Schneider Electric. I worked for another MEP firm and then eventually landed at Cisco a couple of years ago. When I started at Cisco, I was the only electrical engineer in our Boston office. Yeah, it was frightening. But we did have one senior guy who I have never met in person and only talked to on Teams. I don't think if I passed him on the street, I would know it's him. But from that, I've been able to figure out how to create my own network of people and find the network of mentors. And I'm excited to help give some tips and tricks on how I did that. And through being on my own for a couple of years, I've been able to very quickly adapt, learn a lot, and become one of Boston's lead electrical engineers for our Boston-based projects. Thank you.
Hi, does this work? It's working. Okay. Hi, I'm Kendall. I just graduated with a master's in business analytics from the University of New Hampshire. I was 22 when I graduated. I'm now 23. So I'm Gen Z, and my brain's as close to being developed. We're almost there. Talk to me in 2 years. So I grew up obviously with a lot of technology. I grew up with a computer in my dad's office, and I would play pinball on the laptop. And then when I was 10, I had an iPad in my hand, and from there, I just have loved technology ever since. I was an iPad kid too, as well. And yeah, here I am. I've loved technology for forever, and that's really what got me into business analytics. It's more technical, and it was something that I was passionate about doing. And yeah, also I had to go through college during COVID, so that was an interesting bump in the road. And yeah, I studied abroad in Germany and, well, Netherlands, but close enough. Yeah. But yeah,
Same.
that's something about me.
Thank you so much. I think I invited a couple of my friends, and I said, honestly, like this panel, like each generation is gonna be represented, and we're gonna have such a good conversation. I told you. I would love to dive more into how each and every one of got into tech, because it's throughout the generations. There's such a shift that went on. Back in the early 80s, there were only 8% of women in computer technology jobs. Now, 40 years later, it's 20. We're getting there, but and I have a lot of stats for you later, but so I would love to hear about what was this one moment? Was there a moment where you said, yes, I'm gonna go into tech? Whatever order.
I can go.
Yes.
So ever since I was very small, I grew up always wanting to be a doctor. And eventually my mom, I had a friend in school whose mom was a mechanical engineer. And I think my mom saw some similarities in my personality and hers. And she was like, hey, you should try engineering. And I grew up loving math, loving science. Writing was never my thing, but I loved to read books. So engineering sort of made sense. And I think it was really awesome to see a woman in engineering. It helped inspire me. I ended up going to engineering camp, picked electrical somehow, but I've stuck with it. I like it a lot. And I think the biggest part was that seeing someone who is like you doing the thing, it helps inspire. So, thanks, Mom. She's out there.
Thanks, Mom.
So I'll comment. I sort of fell into technology and engineering, right? When I was growing up, there was no STEM, there was no exposure. I wound up in college having to take a computer science class and liked it. I thought I was heading for the business route. Instead, I wound up on the computer route. Got into a job, and I was looking around and seeing folks do some really cool work. And I'm like, okay, I think I can do that, right? So what's different? Well, in the company I was working at the time, they all had advanced degrees. So I needed my master's degree in computer science. So while working, I went to school nights to get my degree. And it's paid off ever since, right?
Kathy, just leaning on that, you told me this amazing story about early in your career, how you went to that meeting.
Oh.
I would love to share it. Could you share that? I don't want to share your story.
Yes, I did. I did share a story about women in engineering. So my boss had an industry breakfast to go to, and he wasn't able to make it. So he asked me to go. Okay. I walked in the door and they said, "Hi, you must be Kathy Marble." And I went, "Yeah, hello, okay, right in." I walked in, the entire room was men in suits. The entire room.
That's literally 1%. You're the 1%.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, so I guess I had a similar but opposite experience. I originally wanted to do business, and I took a course, Management Information Systems, and my professor was a female, and I loved her so much. She was so passionate about teaching us, and it was such an amazing experience that I decided to go into the business analytics role myself. And I'm very grateful because as soon as I got to my master's, it was much more technical and statistical. And I like that a lot.
I think I resonate with Kathy's story of kind of falling into it. As I said, the internet and, personal computing was in its baby infancy, when I was in high school, right? Like I was still using the card catalog to look up books at the library. And so, I think when I went to college, we were one of the first classes to get campus email. So the jobs that I've had didn't really exist yet because they've all been dependent on the internet. And so I actually I was a science kid. I majored in environmental science because, I've always been drawn to mission-based work and causes. But then when I graduated, it was interesting times because, there wasn't exactly, I think I was using monster.com, was a baby then, to find jobs. And there weren't exactly jobs that were like, "Hey, environmental science majors, come work here." And so I ended up working in a nonprofit, the Anti-Defamation League in Boston, just to get a job and be in Boston. And I was working in the fundraising department. I was a development assistant. And what I realized working there is I had a knack for helping everyone in the office, do their jobs more efficiently by leveraging technology, right? Whether it was, hey, we could set up an Access database with all of our donor records. That would be a lot easier than using WordPerfect at the time, right? So I was always drawn to that. Like, how can we use technology to, enable work and ideally in a mission-based organization. And so, I left the ADL and went to another small company. It was actually a fundraising software company called Campaign Associates. And I had the best title, everybody. I was an e-philanthropy specialist. Yeah. And we were selling a brand new product that would help you give donations online with your credit cards with only a 9% fee, right? And we were trying to build trust. People were like, "You want me to put my credit card on the internet?" Right? And similar to what Kathy was mentioning, I think I've always just kind of followed interesting problems. So that organization got acquired. And I found Whipple Hill, which happened to be working in educational technology, learning management systems, SIS, admissions tools for private schools, and communication, engagement tools, a website builder. And when I started there, I was doing implementation. And then, there was a product management team, and I saw what they were doing. I was like, that looks really cool. Like, to be able to help actualize a little baby idea, right? Like something from nothing, right? It's like alchemy, right? Like to take this little idea and work collaboratively with a team of geniuses, right? But like we're all bringing our superpower to the mix to actually take something from that concept to actually being delivered, giving value to, again, I was working with schools. To schools was just I got the bug, and I've been there ever since.
That's awesome. It's actually a really perfect segue because I would love to talk more about how over the decades, and we heard already a little bit, right? Like how you got into your role, how you discovered that that is actually a job. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about your experiences throughout your career. How have career opportunities changed, right? What is it that you see, and what does it mean for your job today?
How things have changed. Okay. Yeah, things have changed a lot for women, but not nearly as much as they need to change. I would have to say. You know, you heard my story about the only women in the room. I learned right up front, if you're going to work in engineering, right, you got to get used to this. But I have also seen more women in education, more women in the workplace, and women able to succeed. Oh, hold it up. Oh, thank you. Women able to succeed in various roles, and also just being flexible and looking for opportunities and being willing to take risks to take that opportunities. As my career has gone, not everything has gone well. I talked about the companies going up and down, and my roles had changed at that time, and so I had to be resilient, right? But I think a key was embracing change, because when things happen, it's really hard, right? It's hard to make changes. The more you embrace it, the easier it is, and I found the more successful you can be.
I also think I oftentimes find myself as the only woman in a room, right? I work in the construction industry, so I stomp around construction sites all the time, and most of the time when I walk on there, it's assumed that I am not the person who is in charge of the electrical design, which kind of stinks, but it's changing still, right? Like I do see some more women in the field. I see women doing the construction, and that's also very encouraging. And we have a young woman who just joined our office as a mechanical engineer, and I love to see it. You know, when I started 2 years ago in my current role, I was the only woman other than our admin and an elevator lady. So we're working on it.
I guess I can't speak to change because I haven't really seen much. But yeah, I guess in my master's program, there weren't that many females. So it was kind of like interesting for me because I was expecting it to be more balanced per se. But I was definitely finding myself in a situation or situations where I was in a predominantly male group, and I had to like combat those.
Yeah, we talked briefly about that, Kendall, and you mentioned that in group work and those things, even though the share of females it's changing, right? And still there's work to do, and there's sometimes still the desire to overcompensate. Like, how do we stretch, into some of those spaces?
Yeah, I definitely felt myself having to push more for my ideas as compared to like, I feel like if I was a male, my ideas would have been considered better. Like essentially I was sometimes reduced to like the get in the kitchen aspect, like of doing data, and it was just like I have more ideas to offer than this, but that was not the experience 100% of the time, but it definitely, I've had those experiences in my college.
Yeah, I like to just pick up on, you did a great job in terms of advocating for yourself. So I think that's very important because women do get talked over, your ideas don't get picked up. I was in a meeting this past year, a bunch of people that I hadn't worked with before, and everybody was doing the indirect introductions, and my team was responsible for the prime technology that we were meeting about. And so I introduced myself as the director of software, and online, right, the person's taking notes, writes project coordinator.
What did you do?
I took a deep breath. I looked, and I'm like, okay, you have these moments to make decisions. And I spoke up. I said, I'm sorry, you got that wrong. And I got tons of apologies and side notes and all that, but it's real.
Yeah. I mean, similarly, definitely lots of meetings where I am the only female in the room. But I do have to say, I have seen a lot of positive, just awareness alone, right, in the hiring process. in making sure that, you know, we are being considerate of getting a, you know, diverse set of candidates, and that, you know, we're trying to move away from kind of a toxic bro, you know, kind of Uber culture. You know, I have seen that, you know, in organizations that I've been in. So I think there's movement in the right direction, but still, you know, some opportunity for sure.
Yeah, that's what we're hearing, right? And I wanted to talk a lot more about there's some things that we're walking in the right direction. If it's at the right speed, I don't know. Like, we need to define the target. Where do we actually want to go? So if we think about more of those challenges, like, are there more of those stories or advice when you come? I love the part about speaking up. It's so uncomfortable. We got to do it, because otherwise nobody's going to do it. And it is in a room of people who are just like smiling and waving it off. So challenges of that sort, specifically in your industry, what's still in the way for women in tech?
Sometimes it's women. Women don't always support each other.
Especially now. Don't support other women.
It is just so important, right? What is it, the saying? I'm going to get it wrong. Rising tide. Thank you. Yeah. We're not competing against each other, right? We have to help each other succeed.
Yeah, I definitely think, you know, some of the awareness building, and whether it's, you know, I mean, whether it started with Lean In or, you know, something before that, but, you know, being more cognizant of amplifying voices in the room. You know, like if I was in the meeting with you, I would have said, hey, you got the title wrong, right? And being willing to, you know, be vulnerable and help each other out is the ideal, but it doesn't always happen, because you do get that feeling like, oh, there's only X number of slots and I don't want to put my neck out on the line, right?
And yet we have to speak up. And what happens if we speak up? Can it sometimes swing in the wrong direction? I think we briefly discussed that, Kendall, about how far is the pendulum swinging and where does it in the end stop? Making an example, if you stand up for yourself, sometimes you're like the elbow, the word with a B.
Too aggressive, maybe, would be the word. Sorry. Maybe too aggressive would be the word that I would use. But yeah, I think especially like growing up, you see a lot of internalized misogyny among women, and it's like really difficult to watch, because we should be uplifting each other and helping each other out. And it hasn't changed much, if you're wondering, as a Gen Z person. Like, we're still jealous of each other. That still happens. There's still issues that we need to work out. But yeah, that's like, it's very hard for me to watch, because I mean, I guess I've done it myself. We've all judged other women and we've all been internally misogynistic. That's how society works. But yeah, it's just, you have to also be aware of that and recognize that. And I think that's how we can push forward, if we're all aware of it and can say that we've done it.
And continue to have these kinds of conversations. Like, this is the second panel that I've been on talking about the same stuff. It's a very different demographic for this one. The last one was a data center conference that was mostly men, but it's encouraging, welcoming environments. It's not saying that we need to stick a group of people up on a pedestal. It's making sure that the pedestals are all even.
And that is what you just said, Kathy. It's so important to see people, to see women, to see and be seen. And that's where mentorship for me comes in. So, and you know, Kelsey mentioned that in the beginning, in the intro as well. I was like, where's she hiding? That the role of mentorship, the role of having these conversations is just, you cannot overstate the importance. So would love to hear, were you able to get, you know, find mentorship? What was the way, like, how would you recommend for maybe, you know, the younger audience or someone who's like, where do I find a mentor? How does this work? So would love to hear about Was there like an impactful mentor for you? And how do we find them? How do we find each other?
I can start. I never had a formal mentor. I didn't seek one out. And I don't know if that's a generational thing or a personality thing. This feels like therapy. Why can't I ask for help? But I definitely, while I didn't have formal mentors, I definitely had peers and trusted, whether it was women or men, like people in the industry that, kind of became an informal board of directors, people that we could talk to each other about career transitions or what challenges that we were facing in our careers. And that was, just so wonderful, whether it was just to lament a similar challenge or learn from each other or get opportunities from each other. But I did have someone who I, previously managed, and then we ended up at different organizations, but she sought me out to be her mentor. And I remember her asking, and I was like, me? You want me to be your mentor? Okay. And not really being sure what shape that would take. And I think, that example for me is that she sought it out. She wanted it. She didn't wait for, a company to say, go find a mentor. It was something that she felt would be of value to her. And, she took that step, and, we regularly have breakfast or lunch. She'll reach out to me if she's, having a challenge. And again, like anything else, right? You get as much out of it as you put into it. So I'm an external processor. So it's wonderful, to hear questions and to give, that feedback. And I learn something at the end of every conversation as well. So that's been my experience.
Mentorship goes both ways. And just to sprinkle another fact in that, if women have mentorship, they're 24% more likely to ask for a promotional raise. So go find your tribe.
So mentoring, I've mentored a number of people and wound up doing it in various ways, either through an existing working relationship. I've had people seek me out. My company even had a formal mentorship connection. So I was connected with people. I'm still mentoring a woman in sales who's in Germany, right? So it's been very rewarding for me as well. I've mentored men and women. Right. So we talk about women. There's a lot of similarities for men, too. Right. There's a lot of challenges that they have. And it's just rewarding to help somebody along in their career. But it does take effort on the part of the mentee to take the initiative and own it and get things out of it, because it's also a commitment from the mentor. Right. In terms of spending the time to do that. For myself, again, I don't think mentoring was a term. But one of the things I was thinking that was most helpful in my career is different managers, leaders in the organization saw potential in me and gave me an opportunity. Those are the people that you need to seek out. And again, how do you do that? Well, I don't think there's a formula. But when you do find people like that, take advantage of the opportunities and see where it goes. Great advice.
Yeah, there are people out there who are just exceptional leaders. And once you find one, stick with them. And I think I'm also in the same boat. I've never really had a traditional mentor, right? I was the lone electrical engineer for a while, and I had to find people to be a technical mentor and help me out with different kinds of projects who knew the subject matter far better than I do. But then there's also things you can do with people who are in a similar boat as you. There are other women in my company who are in the same career paths, who have the same career trajectory, and even just talking to them and having them as a sounding board and discussing some similar gripes you have about work helps a lot.
Yeah, I also have no similar or traditional mentor like everyone else. Yeah, I would say it would just be my professor who just inspired me to get into business analytics, and I kept rolling with it from there on. And yeah.
Yeah, that's again, C and B seen. And that's the paying forward role. I'd like to talk about a topic that honestly was really tough for me to prepare because I had so many thoughts about just asking this. And that alone was a weird thing to go in my brain. I want to talk about how we balance tradition and innovation. And I want to caveat that when I say the tradition, I would never say that childcare is a woman's job. It's not. It's a teamwork, 50-50, both in it. And at the same time, so everybody struggles with having a full-time job, having a life, having children, feeding them, bringing them to their sports. Balancing that with a very demanding job is not just a woman's question. This is a work-life balance challenge, especially with, everything online and in your living room, and you really, work is just in my pocket. Let's talk about that a little bit. It's important for everybody, men and women, and we give the babies. We gave birth. So the whole part about how the society is supporting and how that is also maybe evolving since each of you started. Would love to talk about that.
Yeah, this is a meaty one. Because again, I grew up with a mom who stayed home and a dad who worked, who had those traditional, whatever that word means, roles. And so I didn't have that model. However, my mother was hell-bent on me having my own career and being independent. That's why I can't ask for help. And finding a career path. And so I grew up with the whole women can be anything, right? And you can have it all. Pressure, right? And so, there's flaws with that as well, in that we burn ourselves out trying to do all the things. But what I have found, so I had my son, Mason, who's now 16, and I remember going back to work, and bringing him, this little tiny baby, to daycare and crying my eyes out after I dropped him off, right? Like, it just didn't feel right. Like, I'm letting strangers raise my baby. However, I also knew that I wanted to have a career, that was a fulfilling part of my life. Not to mention, we needed the dual income. And so navigated it. And, but I do feel really fortunate that I've, pretty much always had a hybrid situation. So I feel very fortunate to, not have been in a job situation where I was leaving at 6 a.m. to commute down to Boston and not getting home till 8 p.m. I've had that flexibility. Certainly there were some days where he was at the after school program, right to the last minute. But I've seen all of his soccer games, and I've seen all his, basketball games and chorus performances. And I feel like that flexibility was definitely something that, again, my dad did not have, right? And it would have been, frowned on for him to bail out, at 5 p.m. to go check out my track meet. So yeah, I think I've always found with work-life balance, it's never in the same day you're going to find the balance. It's like over time, it kind of adds up. There's some weeks where, I forget I have a kid. I'm like, wait, is Mark picking him up? Because I'm just throwing him in deep in the work. And others where, I can put more focus on the family. So, it is a juggling act, though.
I feel like we need another panel discussion just with that. Love to hear stories. How about the other generations? Thoughts about that? Maybe not your own family plan, but as your generation, thoughts?
So definitely don't have kids. Cannot relate to the whole motherhood thing, but definitely don't have kids. But I think something that put a little light bulb in my head was your dad not being able to cut out at 5 o'clock to go see your track meet. It's encouraging now to see my bosses, my managers, they're guys. I'm an engineer. Most of them are men, and it's encouraging to see them going to their kids' stuff, taking the kids to practice. My boss specifically, he splits. He's got 3 kids. He splits all of the practice time with his wife, and it's encouraging to see less traditional roles and seeing people take turns and collaborate and be a team with their family. And I also think I'm very fortunate to be working in a state like Massachusetts where they give you 12 weeks of parental leave as the minimum. So it doesn't matter if you're the mom, it doesn't matter if you're the dad, you get 12 weeks of parental leave. So it's definitely changing.
I do think it's changed tremendously. It made me think of yet another story. One of the companies I was with, I got laid off. I was 6 months pregnant. I was like, too early to start leave, but find another job when I'm pregnant. And this is when I thank this guy who I hated at the moment, came into my office, and I'm like, how am I going to get a job? And I had a bump, and he looked to me and says, Kathy, how do they know you're not just fat?
HR.
You know, first I had daggers, right? And it was some of the best advice I had gotten, right? And I did. I interviewed, got a job, chose my manager carefully because I thought of, okay, I need somebody who's going to be able to hear this. And then, of course, all right, now how do I tell them? And I showed up and I went, you know, I'm pregnant, right? And it went from there, and it turned out wonderful. But but these days, coming forward, the flexibility is just fabulous, right? So prioritize, whether it's work, it's family, or both. Make your personal priorities and then make it work. And if you're in an organization that doesn't support that, find a different one.
Yeah, I do think that was one of the positives of COVID is I think when people didn't have an opportunity to see their grandma for a year, we were like, okay, we need a reset here on our priorities, right? And like I think I see a lot of support for putting family and self first. It is interesting though to watch the pendulum of return to office. Like there's definitely pushback on it, but I'm just amazed of, post-COVID, the types of opportunities and jobs there are to be high-level VP, senior leadership positions where you can be 100% remote, which did not exist in 2019, even. So hopefully, that trend continues, is what I'm hoping.
I feel like my generation is pretty relaxed about work-life balance. I think most of us strive to have that in their careers. So I'm going to also strive to have that. Yeah, I feel like I think it's just better for society that we have a work-life balance where we can spend time with our children and, and our families and have that social connection that we lacked during COVID. So I guess that made me more apt to want a work-life balance was COVID.
Yeah, thank you. I'm already getting the jazz hands from every over there. One of the amazing things having the four of you on the stage is that we have the intergenerational, we literally have you all here, like the generations are speaking. Let's talk a little bit about, is there pros and cons in the way we communicate with each other, the styles, the way we collaborate, the tools. I would assume Gen Z, probably a little bit, totally cliche, probably a little bit more digital. Like, I'm a millennial, do not call me. Yeah, and if it could be an email, just don't put a meeting on. So different perspectives on good stuff, how we collaborate.
Is it crazy that I want to be called? I can't stand being texted. I have 600 unread text messages. I need to be called.
Good to know. Noted.
And we were. That's 600 is crazy.
Like, are you okay?
If I had that many, I think I'd be really stressed out all the time. It's mostly group chat, so. But we were kind of talking about this earlier, and I was complaining that I was in meetings all day, and I hated that now, since after COVID, everybody thinks that tossing a Teams invite on the calendar is okay rather than just sending some emails. But That might just be a me thing. I do think though, with how different people communicate, it's really important to understand some people like phone calls, some people like messages, some people do better with emails. There was this guy that I worked with a while ago, and I remember one of the first things he said to me was, "Do not send me an email. I will not reply. Call me or message me." But there's something to be said about that, right? You can just tell people how you want to be communicated with and what works best for you.
Yeah. Other thoughts on that you want to build on, or?
Technology is my life. I'm online all day long. I have like 13, 14 meetings a day, audio, Zoom, you name it, in addition to the emails, right? And so what I tell people is, send me an email if I don't respond and it's important and it's urgent, send me an IM. Well, now IM is blown up. So now I'm like, text my cell phone, right? I don't know what comes now. Oh, actually, no. I added WhatsApp. If it's really, really important, WhatsApp.
Escalation level.
But I can't survive without it, right?
Well, I don't think we can have a woman in tech panel conversation without talking about AI. So I kind of want to sprinkle that in because I'm getting stares. And I would love to make sure that we have more time to take questions because it should be a conversation. Quick round. AI, are we afraid or not?
Not afraid. I just see it as another technology disruption, right? And again, in my day, we didn't have this internet, right? And everybody was scared of the internet. So I think, Kathy has said it really eloquently. It's about being adaptable. It's about being agile, upskilling, right? Continuous learning and embracing it. I think I saw it on LinkedIn. It's like, you shouldn't be afraid of AI, but you should be afraid of the people who are learning how to leverage AI to do their jobs and your job better, right? Because you need to keep up. But I have you said make it short, so I'll pass it on.
We need a podcast or something.
Yeah. There's no question. AI is here. It's fast. Learn it. Jump on board. Yes, the internet was scary and all these bad things are happening. Well, look at all the nice industries that have popped up on fraud, right? So there's always positive. Cybersecurity was born out of the internet and people doing bad things, right? So.
I mean, I build data centers, so it's keeping me with lots of work to do. I mean, obviously not afraid, but I think we need to be cognizant of our youth and how they grow up with AI and making sure that they're not using it as their main means of learning, because that is our one advantage over AI, is our cognitive reasoning. So that's just all I'll say.
No, I agree. Yes. Let's put the view a little bit more out on the horizon. Let's talk about women in tech in the future. What do you think, what kind of skills will be crucial for as a woman to leverage specifically? And where do you think your individual careers or projecting on your generation, where are we gonna go in?
I mean, I do think where we beat the robots today is that the human connection, the relationships, and the collaboration of making connections on who, any problem that we're trying to solve. If it's not solvable by ChatGPT, it does require collaboration of a lot of different people with different skill sets. And so that ability to build those relationships, find a way to collaborate across generations, genders, everything, is crucial.
And I also think at the end of the day, your goal is always to have a high-performing team. And the best way to do that is a diversity of background and lived experiences, cultures, different generations, different races, everybody. So just making a welcoming environment for everyone. Yeah, I would agree with you mostly, and you as well. Everyone here, I agree with. Yeah, I think that we need to make sure that like we're not using ChatGPT 100% as we move forward. It can be wrong. It can mislead results. And I think as we move forward, I think we need to be aware of like, especially media on the internet, and that's how we can like move forward as a group.
Yeah. And I would just say, be a learner. There's always something changing. Just keep learning, absorbing, and going forward.
And lift each other up and see and be seen. I think we're doing this, right? Okay. First of all, please give a hand for this panel. It was exactly what I was hoping it's gonna be. Would love to hear some questions from the audience. Do we have microphones on the run? Am I running? I think I'm running. Okay.
Yeah, just raise your hand.
I love this intergenerational panel. So could you pick a generation that's not yours and something that you think is great about that generation that they do maybe different or better than yours?
I do. I love you too. We're staying friends after this. And I appreciate how you lead with the work-life balance and the, acceptance and making space for a diverse team. I think those are all skills that, came later for some of the other generations. And so I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'd echo the same thing. Just the acceptance, the tolerance, the welcoming of others. That's different. That's changed. That's come a long way. That's come a long way.
Yeah, and I also, well, I'm not saying my journey has been easy so far. You guys have paved the way for what we are able to do now, and it's only going to keep getting better.
I completely agree with that.
That was good.
Hello, thank you. This was awesome. I just have a question because I have seen so I'm a millennial, and groups of women coming after me. I feel like there's pivotal moments where they decide to leave tech. And as a mother of a 3-year-old, I know I've had my challenges as well, and I decided to stay. So I feel like the two more experienced panelists, I'd love to know if there was a pivotal moment in your career where you decided to stay and why. And the other two, if you feel like there was a challenge that would face you and why you would potentially leave.
I appreciate you saying experienced and not older.
Yeah, I got you. Absolutely. We all have good days and bad days, and high tech is demanding. There is a lot of hours. There's no 40-hour week. And there is a lot of personal sacrifice as part of that. So it is a personal choice. I fortunately enjoy my job. I'm good at it. I love the people I work with, right? I love the technology I've been able to work with. So I look at that as the positives. And then I look at, well, I have another job. Who says I'm not going to be working ridiculous hours too, right? So set your priorities and, try and live by them. Like you said, it goes up and down.
Yeah, and I think I named it. I mean, certainly that first time dropping off my son Mason at daycare was a month. That was really hard. But again, I never really seriously considered off-roading. But I think that's also because, we live in a society that doesn't support that time off. You just know you're going to fall behind. And it's going to be really hard to get back on was my, the calculus that I did. So I stuck with it. And, again, he's 16 now, he's driving himself. Like it's a game changer. And so, there's different seasons of life. And I do think actually, I remember when I did go back to work, I stayed in an implementation training position for a little bit longer than I probably would have, just because it was a little bit easier, right? So I was still in the game, but I didn't really make the leap into the more challenging product manager role until he was a little bit older. And that, in hindsight, was a decision I made intentionally.
Yeah. The younger panelists.
Yeah. Young kids over here. I think something that would make me reconsider what I'm doing now is really if I had to choose between my life and my work. I don't live to work. I agree. If I have kids in the future, that would be a very hard and difficult thing to overcome, like getting back when you have a newborn at home.
Awesome. Take advantage of the flexibility. I think one of the gifts, if there were any of COVID, is flexibility, right? And don't be afraid to try and ask and do things different. I work with team members that work all hours of the day of the week and they get their job done. I'm okay with that.
Right.
Yes, so I'll give everybody a second to think of additional questions. We have a bunch from online, so we'll do a couple of those.
The first one is, how do you think we get more men engaged to support women in tech? Do we need more allies or do we need more women in the pipeline?
Yeah, I do think it's a both, right?
Yeah, absolutely both. But as we had heard before, in terms of diversity and inclusion, more companies are now providing training and education and understanding and, how to deal with someone different.
And keep having these conversations. I said it once, I'm gonna keep saying it. I did this panel, basically the same thing with different generations of women at a conference of mostly men, and it was very well received. You just need to keep having the conversations, keep telling people we're not blaming anyone, we just want everybody to work together.
And another one is, how do you think the media representation of women in tech has evolved, and what impact does it have on young women considering a career in this field?
Let me give you a thought starter. Sophia, did we talk about it or no, I think Kendall, we talked about it. We talked about, should we have our introduction and talk about that historic figure woman that inspired us? We did not come up with one. And sometimes the absence of something is also a statement. And so it was the question, so why is there no female Elon Musk?
Yeah. We have Elizabeth Holmes.
Oh dear. She's problematic.
And we talked about that because and I'm not saying if she was a man, everything would be better and she probably in the product would have been actually a product, but how would Elon Musk was like, yeah, I'm gonna put tourists in space. And we're like, oh, he's so visionary. But if a woman comes up with something that you don't have to inject yourself, but a product doesn't exist yet, she's a fraud. Why?
Because she misrepresented it.
This brings up maybe not directly to that question, but one of the things I wish I had done earlier in my career is find my authentic self. I don't have to be a man, even though I'm living. And earlier in my career, right, I did, and it took a while for me to get more comfortable and be more vocal and advocate, because I do bring different things to the table, and so do you.
And then one more, this was loved by a few people. How did you deal with mom guilt after returning to work after maternity leave?
Still have it. My kids are grown. Yeah.
I do think, my son has done very well. So I think the fact that he's okay, it didn't ruin him. I think it's been actually positive for him to see his mom kick butt. With a career has, been more positive than me being, present every single hour. But again, like Kathy said, it doesn't really go away, but I think that's, how I justify it.
But there is the positive. One of my goals was to raise strong, independent women. I believe I have, and I've been able to be a role model for them.
Yeah, actually, I think about my son my husband cooks dinner every night, right? And he makes the lunches. And, so to see, again, I grew up in the old fashioned traditional household. And so he's seeing something very different. And, I know he would have no qualms about, like, it just isn't even an issue that he wouldn't split that with his future wife or whoever.
That's so awesome to hear. We do have another question in the room, correct?
So this is kind of going off of your question a little bit, but one of the things that I've been reading a lot about recently, and I've actually seen in the young women that I've mentored, they come in really enthusiastic, loving what they're doing, and within 5 or 10 years, they're leaving the field. So I'm wondering, have you seen that yourself in the companies that you've been part of? And if so, what can be done to change that?
I haven't had direct experience with that issue, so I don't know, Kathy, if you have.
I guess it really depends on why they're leaving. I have trouble answering that generally, but no, I haven't seen that. I think I was like, I need to figure this out. 40% of my team is women, and they've been with me a long time. Okay.
What I heard was it has to do with that next step up. In terms of they're not getting the promotion, they get to a certain level and they plateau, and they get very frustrated at that level, and that's what people have said to me as well, and some of the women tech groups that I've been part of. So I was just curious if you had seen that at all.
No, but I'm glad you put it on my radar as a, something to observe, because I think, but again, I'm even, because I used to be at Blackbaud, which was a 3,000 person organization, and I don't remember, I feel like there was really good upward mobility. So maybe we didn't experience it there. So maybe there's pockets of it, but interesting.
Yeah, it is, in my experience, harder for women to get promoted. I'm in a fairly large engineering organization. I'm the most senior woman. There's only a couple more.
As a younger person, can help you out maybe. I think I came into my industry, not super techy, but tech enough. I came into the industry really excited, right? I have goals, I have aspirations, I have stuff that I want to hit, and sometimes I don't want to wait that long to get it done. And I think that might be what it is it could just be the impatience. And, with social media now, you're always getting things at your fingertips. You get information instantaneously. So having to wait a little bit sometimes for that promotion might not be that appealing.
I can share a personal one on that too, because I'm 20 years in corporate and advertising agencies and all that stuff. So not necessarily tech, but man, have I bumped my head on that glass ceiling. And honestly, after a couple of years of seeing that and doing some side steps and maybe trying it here, I founded my own company and I help people do that now. And I think that is, but it's something, again, like it doesn't necessarily have to do with only tech industry, but that the whole combination of what you just said, sometimes we don't want to wait. It is important to us. And if we keep asking, would I apply to this job because maybe I only meet, 60% of the job description? Dude, put in your resume. Put in your resume. You don't have to, if you match on your resume, if you can check every box, you're overqualified. So woman behavior, don't do that. My good friend over here, Crystal, that's literally, she does a living of that. Like, go apply.
No, speaking of Crystal, we got a question here.
Hey, thanks, Nadia. Not planned. Yeah, my name's Crystal. I own a company called Job Talk, and I'm a career counselor. So I talk to 400 people a year, and many of them are women that are in and out of tech. So when we talk about why are people really leaving these companies, it's not always what shows up on an exit interview. It's what I wind up hearing. And some of these things are so little in the scheme of things. Literally, I was going to compliment the fact that 2 out of 5 of you were Converse up on a panel. And as women, I think we're so used to the perception of our value being tied to what we look like and how we appear. And that is also something that's thankfully changing. But I think also when it comes to allies, that's a great way for allies to step in and ensure that appearance is not one of those metrics that is holding someone back. But that, for example, is something I hear all the time from women that are leaving tech, the bro culture, what I look like matters here. Why is the values of my work not being discussed? So these are very real issues still. And I just think you all did such a fabulous job and keep doing what you're doing. But like, love the fact that 2 of you were Converse.
I would also like to say thank you for saying that, because my mom, when I was leaving the house today, told me that, are you really wearing those sneakers? So,
It's a good thing.
thank you.
We have about 3 minutes left. I know we have another question over here.
The Kamala Harris effect.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for this fantastic panel. You all are great, confident, and accomplished women. My question is, have you in your career ever had a time that you may have imposter syndrome or some self-doubt, or do you know anybody with that? And how do you help navigate that and overcome it?
Every day. Yeah, every single day. It's something that I'm really trying to work on is you can see what you can do. Focus on what you're good at. You got the job for a reason. You are capable. And so sometimes it's me trying to convince myself that, and I get the imposter syndrome every single day. I'm in meetings where I have to describe an electrical design of a data center, and I sometimes have no idea what the heck I'm talking about. So just telling yourself you're capable, you're there for a reason, you can see the work you're doing. If you were not doing a good job, you would not have your job.
I did my master's at Antioch, New England's graduate school, and I did a whole thesis on the imposter syndrome. I know. And it was like, I don't want to say I invented it, but I forget the name of the women actually who wrote the first book about it, but I just remember finding it and finding the language for the way that I was feeling and realizing that it's the most competent people who feel that way. Because if you're incompetent, I don't want to say that, but you're too stupid to know. Like, and so, so just having that language, and I've loved the way, again, in the past, when did I get my math? Like that was 2005. That it's become kind of mainstream language and that we talk about it. And I think, one of the things that I realized as I've gotten more experienced is, it's a muscle you have to exercise, like getting up and doing public speaking. You're not going to get good at it if you don't make yourself uncomfortable and do it, right? Taking, leadership on a big project, pitching a big idea. None of us feel 100% when we're doing that and in that moment, but you're never going to get better at it without putting yourself out there. And it's this, you got to exercise that muscle. And I have had team members, who we've had frank conversations about that feeling. And again, just like validating that feeling goes a long way.
While the battery is running low, we're running out of time, but you just said take on that big project. Ask for a raise. Don't take it as like a gift. Oh, thank you. Ask for a raise, for Christ's sake. I really would like to thank you all for not only sharing your incredible personal stories and having this deep conversation. I want to thank all of you for being here. Let's definitely show one big hand, please, for the panel.
Thank you so much. I was just going to end with the same as I'm sure you all can guess. This event didn't just come together overnight. It took a ton of time, effort, and dedication from these 5 women. So another round of applause, please. As well as a ton of dedication from the behind the scenes committee. So a round of applause for them as well. And then lastly, 2 more, because we're all great, the Diversity Workforce Coalition for co-sponsoring. A round of applause to all you for taking the time to be here with us tonight and support these wonderful ladies. But that's it. We hope to see you at future WIT events. We do host them twice a year in the spring and the fall. So be on the lookout for information about the next upcoming event and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.